The night she chose to take me down, she made sure 500 people were watching. Michelle Eaves, CEO of Eaves Global, worth $300 million on paper. She was the most powerful woman in the room, and for 5 years, she was my wife. She didn't grab a mic, she picked up an envelope. Jose, her voice cut through the room, sharp as a verdict. My attorneys prepared something for you. Think of it as a parting gift. She let the silence hang. 5 years making my coffee, ironing my blouses, sitting in the back of rooms you didn't belong in, and you still don't know your place. She turned to the crowd, treating them like her adoring public, and I was just a prop. A woman with $300 million doesn't stay married to a man who smells like laundry detergent. The crowd laughed. 500 of the wealthiest people around, not one of them seeing what was actually happening up there. Ever watch someone set fire to a house they don't even realize belongs to someone else? 14 hours earlier, I woke up the same way I did every single morning. Michelle delivered keynote speeches to jam-packed halls. I made the coffee. Her name flashed across magazine covers. Mine showed up nowhere. That was the deal. That was the sacrifice. For 5 years, I chose the shadows, not because I couldn't step into the spotlight, but because I thought the woman I loved deserved her shot without my shadow looming over hers. I nearly missed it, almost kept walking, but it wasn't just divorce papers. There was a merger agreement, too. Michelle's signature was there, but the name at the top? Maria Coleman, the one person who'd spent years trying to dismantle everything I'd quietly built. Corrine, I said her name into the phone. No small talk. She'd been waiting for this call for months. Activate the founder's override. Tonight.
I didn't pack. I didn't make a scene. I went upstairs, pulled on the plainest shirt I owned, same shirt she never once noticed, and made one decision. Give her one last chance to choose differently. If she didn't, I'd show 500 witnesses who really built the empire beneath her feet. Wait. Before we go on, pause a sec. If you're listening now, help me prove something wrong. My mom used to say I'd never make it to 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this, about dignity, patience, and deciding you won't be invisible anymore, they deserve to be heard. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's prove these stories matter. Let's keep giving voice to people who never got their turn. Now, back to Jose Eaves. The gala hadn't even started yet. Neither had the reckoning. I always got up before the sun. Not because someone expected it or Michelle needed me to. I built my life around a simple rule. Show up before the world asks you to. For 5 years, this kitchen was my office, my boardroom, my corner of the empire I let someone else run. I never resented it. Not until this morning. I nearly didn't go in. It still sticks with me. How close I came to never knowing the truth. I picked up the papers. First page, Michelle's signature. I knew that signature like a song I'd heard too many times. Second page, Maria Coleman. Third page, a petition for divorce, citing financial inadequacy and failure to contribute to marital equity. Financial inadequacy. I was the guy who built the parent company that owned everything with Michelle's name on it. And here I was, described in legal terms as a burden. Back to the kitchen. I picked up my phone, dread in my throat. Corrine. Flat voice, no emotion left. It's time. Activate everything. Pause. Understood. I dumped Michelle's coffee down the drain, got dressed. I could have worn the Brioni suit in the closet, could have shown up in the Bentley she didn't know I still had. I didn't. This wasn't about clothes. It was a test, a quiet question. Who are you, Michelle, when you think nobody important is watching? I felt the silence in the ballroom before I even heard it, the way a room turns when they think they have you pegged. Jose Eaves, Maria said my name with mild amusement, like a punchline from a language she barely spoke. I hardly recognized you without that apron. She laughed, let it hang. Michelle said you might come. Didn't mention you'd be so casual. Her eyes scanned my shirt like she was deciding whether to throw it out. Mr. Eaves, Daniel with that fake executive smile, on behalf of Eaves Global, we appreciate all you've done for Michelle, all the quiet support, all the sacrifice. He let the words sting. It takes a special kind of man to stand behind a woman like her. Not everyone's up for it. Maria stifled a laugh. Glasses clinked around us like applause. Thank you, Daniel, I said. That was it. No explanation, no wounded pride. Because here's what they didn't know. I personally approved the budget for this ballroom, those chandeliers, that marble floor. The company that paid Daniel's last 3 bonuses, I built it. I set my glass down, straightened my $43 shirt, headed toward the stage. Michelle arrived, her element. This was the Michelle that press coverage was written for, the one that drew investors cross-country, the one I'd protected, quietly, for 5 years. I lingered along the back wall, watching, and for a moment I tried to find her, the real woman, not the CEO, the one who used to sit on the counter barefoot laughing at nothing. I looked. She wasn't there. Maybe she'd failed the test before she even started her speech. Michelle locked eyes with me as she spoke about dead weight. 500 people, and she chose me. I held her gaze, not with anger, just that quiet grief that comes with watching something end. Eaves Global is entering its next chapter tonight, a merger that will double our market reach, a partnership built on ambition, not loyalty to things that no longer serve the mission. Applause. Maria led it, of course. Daniel tried to look sincere. Michelle raised her glass, to cutting what no longer grows. Every glass lifted, except mine.
What the crowd didn't realize was that she just made her final speech as CEO. 8 months in the making, engineering her own elevation. Eaves Global, but really her name. She wasn't building a company. She was making a monument. And monuments, they don't need husbands. She just didn't know it yet. Access suspended. Authorization override active. Michelle stared at her phone, pressed the screen. Nothing. "What is this?" she asked her returning, who was already frantically scrolling. Maria's smile faded. "Michelle, what's happening?" "Nothing," Michelle replied, in that automatic way powerful people use when things are going off the rails. "Get me IT, get me the board, get me—" "Daniel!" She called for him like a drowning person grabbing at driftwood. "Fix this. Whatever's happening, fix it now." He looked at her. For the first time in 5 years, I saw it. Daniel wasn't scared of her. "I should have told you 3 months ago," he said. "I don't work for Eaves Global. Never did." Silence. "I'm the senior auditor for the Apex Group. They brought me in 18 months ago to investigate financial irregularities, including the 700 grand redirected to fund this merger." He straightened. "This isn't a malfunction. The system did exactly what it was supposed to. Your authorization was suspended 40 minutes ago by the founding chairman." Michelle Coleman stood, clutching her new contract like it might bite her. Michelle stared at her pen. "Who," she asked, "is the founding chairman?" "You've been married to him for 5 years." The room was still celebrating a deal that had already vanished. That's how a reckoning usually feels, quiet, almost polite, until the ground shifts beneath you. Then Corinne stepped up. "Good evening." 2 words, faster silence than Michelle ever got.
I'm Corinne Denson, General Counsel for the Apex Group, the parent and 95% shareholder of Eaves Global. What I'm about to share is now public record. The board has already been notified. She paused, not for drama, but for clarity. Eaves Global was founded 11 years ago, not by Michelle Eaves. It began as a subsidiary of Apex Group and was gifted, whole, to Michelle as a marital asset by the anonymous chairman. For reasons he'll address, the chairman chose to remain anonymous until tonight. She glanced over her shoulder. 500 people watched me as I crossed that floor.
No laughter now. "Sir," she nodded. "My name is Jose Eaves." My voice sounded different, even to me. Calm, simple, no fire left, just the truth. I built Apex Group 14 years ago, from nothing but an idea and a tiny lease I could barely afford. I let that hang. Eaves Global, this company, everything in this room exists because I built it, then gave it to someone I loved. I glanced at the anteroom door. I'd like to tell you the rest of that story. I didn't lead with anger. That's what really unnerved the room. Not a single ounce of rage, just the quiet resolve of a man tired of biting back his own words. When I started Apex Group, my biggest fear wasn't failure, competition, or collapse. I was terrified of what power does to people who forget where it comes from. I wrote a clause, a founder's clause. The Apex Morality Clause is in every senior contract, including the one Michelle signed. It says, any majority-funded officer who publicly disparages, humiliates, or misrepresents a fellow shareholder, founder, or marital co-stakeholder for personal gain loses their equity. Instantly. No appeal. Michelle didn't just divorce me tonight. She did it on stage, on camera, in front of 500 people, calling me a financial liability.
A financial burden. I said it twice, tasting it. The moment she handed me that envelope on record, she triggered the morality clause. Her equity reverted automatically to me. And by trying to force through an unauthorized merger with redirected funds, which Daniel here has documented, Michelle violated her executive contract. She's no longer CEO, effective tonight. We locked eyes. For the second time that night, she saw me really looking at her. First time, I was still. This time, the room belonged to me, not because I'd grabbed it, but because it always was mine. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came to give her a choice. She made it. Now so have I. Michelle stood at the edge of her own gala. She watched as the crowd, her crowd, turned not away from her, but toward me. That hurts more. I took the head of the boardroom table. Thanks, all, for your service. Polite, almost. Corrine will reach out to each of you about separation terms. If you helped redirect funds, you'll hear from legal by Monday. The rest, I'm sorry you found out like this. A few nodded, most didn't. That silence told its own story. Daniel, my voice carried. 18 months undercover, keeping your integrity under this pressure. I've seen less sturdy people crack. I want you to lead Eaves Global as CEO, if you'll take it. He needed a moment to believe it was real. I'll take it. I walked to Michelle. The crowd parted like a tide. I got close enough for nobody but her to hear. I built that company because I believed in you, not the CEO, you. I'm sorry that somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing the difference. She opened her mouth. Nothing. She slipped out the side door. No speech, no farewell. The gala went on. That, not the clause, not the reveal, not the board's faces, is what really stuck with people. Not the fall of a CEO, but how some absences don't even create a ripple, because the room already found what it really wanted. Here's what this story's about. It's not a morality clause or equity stakes or boardroom chess moves. It's about what happens when being underestimated isn't a wound, it's your strategy. Jose Eaves spent 5 years invisible, by choice, patient, quiet, because he knew something most miss. The loudest person is almost never the most powerful. Power doesn't announce itself at galas. It slips in wearing a plain shirt. It makes the coffee. It waits. When the time comes, it just tells the truth and lets the room react. If this story got to you, even if you've been the person no one saw coming, you know exactly what it's like to walk onto that stage. The strongest move anyone can make is to simply refuse to disappear. This channel exists for stories like this: dignity, patience, and the quiet, unbreakable power of people who never needed anyone's permission to matter. If that's worth telling, subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it. And yeah, leave a comment. Who's underestimated you? I read everyone. Don't let anyone hand you an envelope and call it your worth. You built the building. Don't forget it.